Hey everybody, Christian from Treasure Town here, and today we're going to be talking about some of the biggest mistakes that I see people making in coin collecting, and I think it's a pretty interesting topic and debate to have, which is my main argument being most people are collecting wrong because they're not collecting for the reasons that they are drawn to it. And what I mean by that is it's so easy in today's world to look at what other people are doing and kind of blindly go towards that. And so there's sort of a couple step process that I think can really help our approaches to make sure that we're collecting for the reasons that we enjoy it in a way, because I think that, ultimately, and again, maybe there's almost a meta thing where what I'm saying would totally go against the whole point of the video in trying to inspire people, but to just make people aware that just because a bunch of people are collecting a certain way doesn't mean you have to do it that way. You also might end up finding that to be quite a joyful and interesting way to experience the hobby. And so let's get into the video. I think that there's definitely some follow-up content that would be really interesting, like 10 different collections that you could start today. I'm pretty sure I've done a similar video on that topic several years ago, but I think a lot of people come to me asking, how should I collect? And the great news is that there are so many different ways to do that, and it's really only something that I've been becoming more aware of recently. I mean, when I think about it, I started with US focus, and now today I'm doing a lot with world. I'm continuing to be interested in ancient coins. There's fantastic different tokens, both from America and from all over the world. There's metals that would have functioned in kind of both coin and commemorative purposes, and there are so many more. There's plenty of also just kind of metals that are there for interesting art. And so it's just fascinating all the different sub ways that people can collect, and I think that there's so much of the world's history and our country's history to be uncovered through the numismatic process. And so I think that there's some different trends, and I'm not trying to call anybody out here, but just that I've seen that feel like they're trying to have people collect in a certain way. I mean, I think one of the most obvious questions that I've seen is, and can be super controversial, is ancient coin grading. It's been something that's happened in the hobby recently. I think that there's a lot of pros to it. I think that there are also a lot of reasons that people shouldn't be focused on ancient coin grading. And so I just think that that's a general example. I'm not going to make that the focus of this video, but you also might have something, I really am not a big submitter to CAC, but Isaiah, who is a frequent guest and part of Treasure Town, he is a big fan of submitting coins to CAC to get that yellow or green sticker that is by all means very helpful for the value of a US coin, basically affirming a third-party grade from PCGS or NGC under the standards of CAC. And so some people love that, and some people really couldn't care less. I mean, it's interesting, US coin grading didn't exist 40 years ago, or didn't exist in its modern form, that's for sure. And so at the heart of this, I think that it's a good reminder as a collector to really, I think, start by doing a lot of research and understanding world history. And maybe I'm telling people to focus too much on history. There's certainly a lens where you could only care about it from a gold or a silver perspective. But I think that there is something to be said for trying to broadly understand the hobby pretty well, try to understand numismatics, and then figure out what might interest you. And so a couple things that might look like, it could be personal history, whether that's your ancestry or the country that you live in. You could have interests in different political movements or political time periods. I've been having some really interesting, for example, French coins, when there's a bunch of kind of strife between having centralized emperors and kings relative to the different revolutions and the different republics that popped up, and the currency changes in a really interesting way all throughout. I'm German, so there's fantastic German states legacy that goes way prior to the current modern nation state of Germany. And so those are really interesting. I know one of the most respected numismatists in the world has a really fascinating collection around birds. And so that might include something like an ostrich, or just fantastic depictions of birds. And there's really rare ones. There's some super niche tokens. There's some quite well-known, eagles and things like that. And so I just think that there's so many ways to do it, and I often find people will come to me and basically say something along the lines of, I feel like I have to collect because other people are doing it this way, or I'm so focused, and I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, but on some kind of set registry goal, but it's not going to be in reach, and I feel really disappointed with that because I don't have the unlimited budget that some of the other competitors might have for it. I also know some people off the top of my head that I can think of. We had that bird example, but somebody who loved competing on the registry, but they wanted to do, I believe, Rhodesian coins. So from British control of a southern part of Africa, these are relatively low, very few people are super focused on this series, but they're really specializing in that and trying to get a set of the highest graded coins that they can in that subfield. And it's a good one for them to do because the coins are somewhat accessible and they're not expensive. And so there are just so many different cool collections. I've bought collections filled with tokens that most of them aren't worth more than a couple of dollars, but the tokens that they represent have fantastic history from all across America and its formation. And so I think some of the questions that we can kind of ask ourselves would be, am I enjoying collecting? Am I doing this to impress other people, or am I doing it for myself? Am I buying coins that I would buy if nobody else could ever see my collection? Where am I trying to go learn more about, even if I'm not buying those coins, what am I trying to put my efforts towards? And so I think kind of some of that lens can be so helpful to figure out, okay, am I just, again, doing something because I heard somebody talk about it and, they've told me that this is the best way to collect. I just think that there's such wide variety within the field as I see it. Looking at ancient coins from the Roman Empire, the cheaper ones are going to be probably in the 3rd century and the 4th century. And so those can be much more affordably acquired. And in the past, there's been some marketing around like the 12 Emperors set, which I think is a really interesting, cool way to do it. But those 12 emperors are often a lot higher in price relative to a lot of the other ones. And then even within that, do you want to only do bronze coins, or do you want to mix it up, or could you include silver? Or I think silver from, I want to say, Caligula is like really challenging to find, but you might be able to get a more affordable bronze coin. So there's just so many different debates like that I think are worth calling out. On the other hand, is it really cool to build a 12 emperor set that's well regarded? Or could you have maybe broadened what you focused on by swapping out some of the most expensive coins there for a full set, of much less expensive emperors that would document probably the long-term stretch of the Roman Empire much better? It's all a question. And I think that these are really interesting things to be asking. There's no real set way to check in with yourself, but I think that's just worth addressing. And I feel like I want to highlight some of the different ways that I've seen people collect in the next few videos over the next different months, and maybe even do the pros and cons of collecting in certain ways as I see it. Because I think that resale value, that can be something that's hugely important to a lot of collectors, and others really don't care about it. I think that there can be kind of, do you want to show this off to others? Do you want to show it online? Do you want to, curate history, or preserve value, or do something entirely different and maybe appreciate the modern artwork type coins that different mints and mint masters are putting out today? There's really so many angles that you can take it, and I'm really excited to keep jumping into some of them. But I think I'm curious on your guys' thoughts, how you see it, and maybe you totally go in a different direction. But I think a big mistake today, again, is that people collecting and not really realizing why they're doing it, or not kind of having too much direction in terms of where they're heading with their collection and why they're in it. And that's okay too. You can just see cool things, purchase them, and enjoy it. And I think that you can, again, go really wide or be very, very narrowly focused and have aims. But I think it's just something that's worth checking in and saying, hey, what am I, what's my approach here? How am I doing it? What do I enjoy most about it? Because then you can kind of focus in on some of the exciting, potential within the hobby.
Thanks for watching the video. Make sure to head on over to treasuretown.com and sign up for our email list to stay up to date on everything that's happening, whether it's auction updates, exciting new inventory drops, coin collecting news, or general informational resources. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on another one.